Gymnastics looks cool on the surface, but these 16 cases would be terrifying and make you doubt whether you ever wanted to start your own career. Julissa Gomez. Back in May 1988, at the World Sports Fair in Tokyo, there was a young girl called Julissa Gomez who was preparing for her routine vault warm-up. It should have been straightforward and just enough to warm her up and give her some confidence. She was also one of America's brightest gymnastics prospects and was already being groomed to achieve Olympic glory and bring the medal back home. Coaches saw unlimited potential here, and the world was seeing a future star in the making. The skill she was attempting here was called Yurchenko, a move that required so much precision that it makes modern engineering look pale. There was a round off onto the springboard, a blind back and spring onto the vaulting horse, and then an explosive jump. When executed properly, it would look like art in sight. When anything went wrong with this skill, it would be horrifying. Julissa sprinted toward the vault like she had done thousands of times before, as she was already a master. But in a fraction of a second, her foot slipped during the takeoff, and her trajectory collapsed. She slammed headfirst into the vaulting horse with terrifying force. The sound echoed through the arena, and she was lying completely motionless on the mat. The crowd was completely silent. Coaches rushed toward her side, immediately knowing that this wasn't an ordinary fall, hoping that she would survive, but it was already too late. Doctors said that she suffered a catastrophic neck fracture and was paralyzed from the neck down. Knowing this, her parents flew from Texas to Japan, desperately hoping for recovery. Then came another blow, an oxygen deprivation during this injury that caused irreversible brain damage. Julissa went into a coma, only able to blink, trapped inside a body that was so capable once, and now is utterly useless. For 3 agonizing years, her family cared for her, watching the athlete slowly fade. But then came August 8, 1991, when Julissa died at just the age of 18. Elena Mukhina. We're just beginning because there are athletes who died right in front of millions of people watching and live audiences. She was just 20 years old and already a legend. Elena Mukhina wasn't just representing the Soviet Union. She was known as their entire athletic division. By 1980, with the Moscow Olympics coming quickly, Elena's body was already failing. She had a devastating leg injury that should have required a lot of rest and even proper rehabilitation. But instead, her cast was removed earlier, and the pain was dismissed. Her weight was aggressively cut, and then came the demand that terrified her the most. The coaches wanted her to master the Thomas Salto, which is a brutally dangerous tumbling pass that only a few male gymnasts ever attempted. Elena knew the risks, and she told her coach repeatedly that she wasn't ready for it mentally or physically, but they pushed her regardless. They were always pushing her to train harder and obey orders or be replaced by someone else. Then came July 3, 1980, when inside a training facility in Minsk, Elena ran down the floor. She launched into the skill that she had begged not to perform. Her rotation was incomplete because she under-rotated, and then her chin slammed onto the floor with a painful noise that no one would ever hear. However, she didn't move, and the silence was instant and absolute. Elena broke her neck, and she was paralyzed, just like Julissa, whom we covered before. She lived for 26 years more and died due to her devastating injuries. Melanie Coleman. Then comes the devastating case of Melanie Coleman, and there was no competition pressure, no crowd, and no obvious risk that would destroy her life. But on October 8, 2019, it happened inside the walls of New Era Gymnastics facility in Connecticut. The 20-year-old Melanie Coleman climbed down to the uneven bars for another standard training session. She performed the exact routine thousands of times before, and nothing felt dangerous until everything changed. Amid the routine, she slipped and fell because of a fraction of misalignment. That kind of minor error is something that gymnasts usually walk away from without any consequences, but this time was different. She hit the mat with the force that immediately sent alarms through everyone watching. Coaches rushed towards her side, and her longtime trainer, Thomas Alberti, raised her first, already sensing that something was wrong because Melanie wasn't moving. She was rushed to New Yale Heaven Hospital as doctors desperately tried to stabilize all her spinal injuries. But 2 days later, on November 10th, Melanie died. Sang Lan.
Very powerful young lady. She was the China Games gold medalist on this.
Sang Lan was barely old enough to drive, yet she was carrying the crushing weight of an entire nation of China. In July 1998, at the Goodwill Games in New York City, her destiny was just seconds away from taking another flight. It was supposed to be harmless, which is the timer vault, and there is nothing crowd-pleasing or risky here, just pure muscular strength and her regular routine. She sprinted down the runway with confidence and planted her hands on the vault while launching her into the rotation. From there, the world fell silent because Sang crashed headfirst into the mat and didn't move. The whole arena was frozen, confused, and in horror. Medical personnel rushed into her, but slowly realizing that it might have already been so, surgeons said that her spinal cord had irreversible damage. At just the age of 17 years old, Sang Lan was paralyzed from the chest down. Years later, she even spoke the truth publicly, accusing the system of abandoning her and covering up the truth about what really happened that day. Christy Henrich.
It's always nice to see a gymnast that's been obviously working very, very hard. Her consistency.
But what if I tell you that there is a story of a girl who didn't die from any fall, and there was no broken neck, no shattered spine? Christy Henrich died slowly and was quietly consumed by an obsession that gymnastics culture helped create. By the late 1980s, she was one of America's brightest stars at a major international competition. A judge pulled her aside and delivered unhelpful advice. It was to lose weight if she wanted to make the Olympic team. Christy weighed 95 pounds already, and still she listened. She trained hard, ate less, and smiled through the pain and hunger. Her weight dropped to levels no human could achieve, and her bones started weakening, with organs straining under impossible conditions. Still, she pushed. Even the coaches noticed the changes, but weren't concerned about her health at all. By 1990, her body was shutting down systematically, and hospital stays replaced competitions. Hope came in brief waves, but on July 26, 1994, just days after her 22nd birthday, she died from multiple organ failure caused by severe anorexia. At that point, she weighed only 47 pounds. Nguyen Minh Triet. This guy was only 18, and he didn't know what was coming. Nguyen was a rising star in Vietnam and also the backbone of his family. My other teenager dreamed of a medal and fame. He only trained to sustain his family to survive because he had a sick mother and an exhausted father. On paper, his future looked unstoppable, and he had dominated youth championships over and over again. But he was pushing even harder to go further beyond on the international level. In the routine training session in the National Sports Training Center in Hanoi, the poor boy attempted a familiar backflip, but the foam pit below was specifically designed to catch him. Gymnastics doesn't always forgive mistakes, no matter how many safety measures there are. His rotation this time was slightly off, and instead of landing safely, his neck absorbed all the impact, and from there, he was paralyzed from the neck down. Triet was rushed into emergency surgery, and machines breathed for him, tubes fed him, and the medical team fought desperately to save his life. On May 9, 2024, he quietly passed away. Michelle Madden. Then came the quiet night in June 2009 when a 19-year-old Michelle Madden left home with a smile and a casual promise to her mother that she was heading to gymnastics practice at a facility in Townsville. Inside the gym, she prepared for a backward twisting layout, which was a complex move that demanded both precision and proper safety protection. For a moment, everything was right, but there she over-rotated slightly. Instead of landing on the thick protective padding, her head was crushed on the bare concrete. It was a critical section for safety matting that was removed earlier in the day and was never replaced. Michelle was rushed to the hospital, but her injuries were beyond repair, and she died on the spot. Trayvon Hope Jocelyn. Trayvon Hope Jocelyn was a girl who was bright, confident, and full of energy. She was the kind of child that teachers remember long after the graduations, and she wasn't training for the Olympics or pushing the elite level limits. She was just participating in a school class in 2014. Near the end of their lesson, students were allowed to choose their famous operators for free practice and traveled there with the pommel horse. She had already completed several clean attempts, But then came her final run-up as she leapt towards the operators. Her foot clipped the edge, and at a fraction of a second, a miscalculation resulted in nothing more than a stumble or awkward landing. She paced forward violently, the mad face down with amazing force. At first, no one panicked, but from there, Trevin didn't get up. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. She was rushed to the teachers, rushed to her side, and CPR began. But doctors revealed that she suffered a catastrophic hyperextension injury to her neck. She fought for weeks, but on March 9th, she died. Tyler Sabapathy. So we have the devastating case of Tyler Sabapathy. It happened on a freezing night in January 2025 when Philadelphia exploded with joy as thousands of fans flooded the streets celebrating the Eagles' victory. In the middle of that chaos, there was 18-year-old Tyler Sabapathy, a freshman from Temple University, and a decorated gymnast with more than 100 medals to his name. Danger was never really felt by him for years, and he saw a light pole surrounded by cheering fans, daring each other to climb. From there, he didn't hesitate. He climbed high as the crowd roared and then came to sleep. In a fraction of a second, he lost his grip and his body twisted in midair before crashing onto the concrete below. For 2 days, his family waited for him to wake up, but on January 28, 2025, Tyler died at the age of 18. Jacoby Miles. Back in February 2022, 18-year-old Jacoby Miles was a freshman gymnast at the University of Illinois, Chicago. She was training during the practice session, and while attempting a vault, something went catastrophically wrong with the landing. She suffered severe head trauma upon impact with the mat, and even though emergency medical assistance was called, she never really recovered and died shortly after. Naufal Takdir Albari. A 19-year-old Indonesian gymnast, Naufal Takdir Albari, was training at a Russian camp for the World Championship, a promising Olympic hopeful. One day he was practicing a complex element on the horizontal bar. Tragically, he lost control and fell directly onto his neck in the foam pit. He fractured multiple cervical vertebrae, and even though he received intensive medical care for 12 agonizing days, the young athlete finally succumbed to his injuries, which sent shockwaves through the International Sports Committee and community. Ujair Ali. Ujair Ali was India's most talented rising gymnast. In January 2026, during a warm-up session, something unimaginable happened. While attempting a double flip, he lost his balance and directly landed on his head, severely dislocating his cervical vertebrae. After battling in the hospital for 2 weeks on life support, the young champion passed away. Jordan Bone. Another bone-chilling case of a gymnast's death is that of Jordan Bone, who was a trampoline gymnast with amazing spatial awareness, but even masters are vulnerable to fatal errors. In January 2004, he represented the U.S. at the World AGF Games and was competing at the Invitational in Tennessee. During his routine, he lost control and fell from the trampoline, striking his head violently on the ground in front of over 1,000 spectators. He was rushed to the hospital immediately, but the severe head trauma had killed him just 2 days later. Ricky Desai. But not all gymnast tragedies involve high-impact falls because, in October 2001, the young Ricky Desai was training in the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. He was ranked second nationally in his group, and he was performing a routine on the pommel horse when he suddenly collapsed without any reason. Despite immediate CPR and emergency intervention, he could not be revived at all. It was a terrifying reminder for everyone that the human body can sometimes trigger a malfunction. Victoria Balandina. Acrobatic gymnasts often go into high-stakes circus performances just to make a name for themselves. In May 2025, 22-year-old sports acrobat Victoria Balandina was rehearsing her first-ever circus show in Russia. She was attempting somersaults inside a massive rotating contraption called the Wheel of Death, and when she lost her balance, she plummeted over 16 feet, landing headfirst. She died instantly in the ambulance from those head injuries. Natalia Stikova. Next up, we have the devastating case of Natalia Stikova, who was perfectly flexible and a balanced gymnast, training for the most dangerous situation. She was just a 23-year-old Czech gymnast visiting the Tagelberg Mountain near Germany, and she was known for her daring acrobatic skills. That's where Stikova attempted to perform a challenging gymnastics pose on the cliff's edge for a photograph. In a fraction of a second, she lost her footing and tumbled 262 feet down the mountainside. She suffered irreversible brain damage and passed away 6 days later. This 16th death shows us that anything can go terribly wrong in the world of gymnastics. If you want to see the times when it wasn't the gymnast's fault, but their death was entirely on their coaches, let us know in the comments down below. And subscribe to the channel to always stay up to date with the most devastating moments all around us.